Good evening, everyone. My name is Kirsty Duncan, and I'm the Member of Parliament for Etobicoke North, and it's an honor to be in York South-Weston. Before I introduce your outstanding candidate, Ahmed Hussein, I'd like to acknowledge Arif Barani of Cardiff. Before I introduce your outstanding candidate, Ahmed Hussein, I'd like to acknowledge Arif Barani of Cardiff High Park. Sven Spengeman, Mississauga Lakeshore. Willowdale. And Boris Zhevnevsky, Etobicoke Center. Before I introduce our outstanding Ahmed, I would like to bring up a little boy. His name is Gigi, and he has something for Justin Trudeau.
Someday you will be.
Thank you, sweetheart. Yay for Gigi! And now I have the privilege of introducing my dear friend, Ahmed Hussein, to you. I've had the honor of working with Ahmed for the last many years, and I know firsthand the tremendous work he does. What I appreciate most about my friend is how he empowers others, how he is a voice for the voiceless, and he is a wonderful advocate. At Regent Park, he was the advocate for a $1 billion city project in Regent Park. As you all know, Ahmed went to law school. He is known for fighting for human rights. He headed a national organization, and he is a wonderful advocate. At Regent Park, he was the advocate for a $1 billion city project in Regent Park. As you all know, Ahmed went to law school. He is known for fighting for human rights. He headed a national organization. He worked for the provincial government. And with your help, with all your help, he will be the next Member of Parliament. And Justin Trudeau will be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Everyone, Ahmed Hussein.
Thank you so much, Kirsty, for your kind intro. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's here. It's lovely to have all of you here in York South-Weston. I know for a fact that Kirsty is no stranger to our community here in York South-Weston. And for many of you, I know that you've just come off a very, very difficult and spiritually renewing process of Ramadan. I just want to say Eid Mubarak. I'm honored here today to stand before you as a member of Team Trudeau. I'm honored by the fact that it's such an honor to stand with a team that has a great leader such as Justin Trudeau. Justin, it's an honor and it's so wonderful to have you here in York South-Weston. Many of you know me through different areas of my work, but those that don't, I just want to take a few minutes to tell you why I put my name forward for public office. I came to this country as a refugee, as a new immigrant, as a young person. I took the time to improve myself and put myself through school and so on. As I did that, as I got to the point where I am today, where I'm able to put my name forward for public office, I used community resources around me, the libraries, mass transit, social housing, student aid. Those are the kinds of opportunities that are under threat from the Conservative government in Ottawa. And those are the opportunities that we need a Liberal government to get into power so that they can be preserved and enlarged for the next generation of people. The Liberal Party of Canada represents our shared values. And this is why I believe strongly that Justin Trudeau is the best leader for our country. It's an honor for me to stand behind a leader that cares about each Canadian, that believes that every Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. No dual citizenship. No second-class citizenship. A leader that believes strongly in taking care of the vulnerable. That's why, as a party, we condemn the cuts to refugee health care. A leader that's committed to a united and strong Canada, and because that's not Mr. Harper's vision, nor it appears to be the vision of Mr. Mulcair. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Justin Trudeau, a leader who will bring real change to Ottawa, a leader that will ensure that the voice of MPs is heard in Ottawa and not the voice of the Prime Minister in New York Southwest. It's my great privilege and honor to welcome Mr. Trudeau to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the next Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.
Thank you, my friend. Eid Mubarak to all of you who've been celebrating Ramadan. A time of reflection, a time of personal sacrifice, and that combined with something that my friend Ahmed just said gave me pause to reflect for a moment on what leadership is all about. He mentioned that line we've been talking about a while now, about making MPs your voice in Ottawa, and not just Ottawa's voice in your community. And that's an extremely important part of what I'm trying to bring as change to Ottawa. But the other part of that is making sure that the voice that speaks for your community is actually a voice that A, understands your community, and B, is going to speak with the kind of experience, conviction, values, and strength that a community like York Southwestern, like communities across this country, truly deserve. And that's when we talk about leadership, we do have to think that the core piece of leadership is, you want to qualify a leader, don't look at how good they give orders, don't look at how angry they can get, don't look at how much power they accumulate to themselves. Look at who is willing to step up to follow them. And when I look at the extraordinary team that we are putting forward as the Liberal Party of Canada, very different from Mr. Harper's style, and even Mr. Mulcair's style, which is very much about a strong person at the top of the pyramid, but nobody else around. Now, I learned a couple of things about leadership when I was growing up, from a man who was no slouch when it comes to intellect, understanding, and having the answers. But my father understood that leadership is about surrounding yourself with extraordinary people whose voices will add to yours. And when I look at extraordinary experienced municipal lead and community leaders like Judy Scrow, when I look at amazing, compassionate, brilliant, Nobel Prize winning the intellects, and people like Kirsty Duncan. When I look at people like Ali, people like Sven, people like, I keep calling him Verb, but his name is Arif. I knew Verb back when we were, Arif when we were back in debating at McGill, who've become powerful voices for their communities. And the extraordinary Ahmed Hussein is an outstanding example, not just of a Somali Canadian, but of a Canadian that you could hope to find. What Ahmed understands is that leadership is also, as we all reflected upon through Ramadan, about sacrifice. About knowing that you are putting yourself in a position to serve. Not to lift yourself up, but to lift up your community. To understand that the responsibility of a leader is to empower and enable those people who entrust you with the responsibility of building a better future for them. That is what our politics at the federal level has seemed to forget. We have politics of attack, politics of division, politics that point out all sorts of things that people are inventing about who's ready and who's not, to try and scare you into voting one way or another. Well, you know what? I know this country. I know this country deeply from having walked it, traveled it, connected with Canadians from the time I was a baby to now. And I'll tell you, Canadians, all of us, are better than that. Yeah. We are sick and tired of having to vote against the people we don't like. It's about time we got to vote for a vision of this country that isn't going to take the easy route, isn't going to promise you everything will be better, but will commit to you to work with you, alongside you, to create the real and fair chance for everyone that has always defined this country and will into the future. Now there are two pieces of legislation. I'm not going to speak for too long because it's hot in here and I want to meet everyone as I can, and maybe we'll spill out onto the lawn where there's a nice breeze and we'll keep taking pictures and chatting. But there are two things that I've heard a lot of people talk about over the past weeks that I think need to be addressed. The first one is Bill C-24. Ahmed mentioned it. It's a bill that, on the surface of things, seems to be quite justifiable from a political standpoint. The idea that anyone convicted of a terrorist crime should no longer have the privilege and rights of being a Canadian citizen. That's the kind of thing one can say that would get heads nodding across the country. Of course, if someone commits a terrible crime against Canada, then maybe they shouldn't get to be a Canadian anymore. The problem with that, and why the Liberal Party has steadfastly opposed Bill C-24 from the very beginning, is because it's based on a false premise. It's based on the idea that there aren't already sufficient punishments for anyone convicted of a severe and grave crime against Canada. We have punishments. It's called prison for life. The problem is, as soon as you introduce an element that says, if you have dual citizenship, or if you were born somewhere else and you are convicted of such a crime, you will lose your Canadian citizenship, and you say that only to people who have become Canadians and not to the people who were born Canadians, I don't care what the Conservatives try to say, you're creating two classes of Canadian citizenship. You are making citizenship conditional on your good behavior. And that devalues citizenship, not just for all of you, but for everyone in this country. When you become Canadian, you are Canadian, full stop. And that has always been the strength of this country. That didn't matter what land you came from or your ancestors came from, what language you speak, what religion you practice, what your skin color is. A Canadian is defined not by surface identities, but by shared attributes, shared values, openness, respect, compassion, a willingness to work hard, but a desire to be there for each other. A search for equality, for justice, for opportunity for all. That is what defines a Canadian. And that is what we have to fight to protect, preserve, and pass on to our children. And that's why we're opposing 224. The other issue that I'm sure you've heard a lot about is Bill C-51. This anti-terrorism legislation that was put forward by the Conservatives that is flawed. There are elements in that legislation that do increase the protection in meaningful ways for Canadians in their safety. But there are parts of that bill that do not protect adequately the rights and freedoms that define us as Canadians. So the opposition parties had a choice. You could either oppose the bill because you don't like the attacks on our liberty and freedoms, but also oppose the elements that keep Canadians safe. Or you can say, like we did, that we support the elements in the bill that keep Canadians safe, but we will fix the elements that are an undue affront and attack on liberty. Now, the NDP took the other choice from us. They chose to oppose wholeheartedly the bill, even though they're voting against Canadian security. But what you won't hear me say is that the NDP doesn't care about Canadians' security. You won't hear me say Mr. Mulcair doesn't care if terrorists attack Canadians. Because that's exactly the wrong kinds of politics of division. And the fact that the NDP is now saying that the Liberal Party wants to tear up the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that we are willing to have a police state here, well, you know what? That's the same kind of politics of fear that Mr. Harper has specialized in. And we deserve better than the kinds of polarized politics of attack and division. Which is why the Liberal Party is committed to repealing the problematic parts of C-51 and demonstrating once again through bringing in proper oversight, proper sunset clauses and review clauses, and tightening up the definitions that are overly broad, that we understand that issues like security are not ones to play nasty politics on, and at the same time that a responsible government in this country combines both security for its people and upholds our liberty and freedoms. That is what the Liberal Party has always done, and that is what we will do in the future. So I thank you very much for being here today. I thank you for all your support of it, and I look forward to continuing to work alongside with you in the weeks, months, and yes, even years to come. We have a bright future ahead of us, my friends. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, les amis.